Welcome everybody back to the Press Box for another new edition. Zach Miller, Mark Haskell. Couple of big local games we got to get to, but first I think we should start with the NFL this week, Mark.
You're going to flip it on its head,
Let's flip it over this week because
Okay.
obviously the NFL is what everybody's talking about. Patriots play this week. We had some pretty good wild card games last week.
We did.
And a couple of upsets.
Yes.
I shouldn't say me, that's bad English. I will never pick picks again while I'm sick. Right, Mark? Because I went a big 0-4.
For Zach Miller. Yeah. I mean, you had such a great season picking games all year, and obviously in our Pigskin Pundits thing online, Ken Waltz went 16-0, and I think it was week 16 and kind of pulled past you. But you were kind of leading the pack for a lot of the year, and
I was leading the pack for the whole year, except for that last week when Ken's like, I think I'll try now. And
a big stinker for you, and I'm really glad that I didn't. I said last week on this show that I was going to change my pick from Baltimore to the Chargers, and I doubled back on it and decided not to. And everybody else, we all went 2-2, but luckily Zach is feeling better this week, so maybe his picks will be a little better.
Better, but we're not totally there. So I'll get one win this week, doing better, but not totally there.
Hopefully you pick the Chargers.
No, I would have picked the Chargers. Are you a fool? Anyway, we're going to start with the divisional round this week. Let's start off with Indy at KC. We'll go in order by television schedule here.
Yep, I like it.
That's Saturday, 4:35 on NBC. Indy's at Kansas City. Indy, the 6th seed. Kansas City, the 1 seed. Kansas City coming off a bye. The Colts, they're pretty hot. They've won 10 of their last 11. And I'm going to run through some of the little facts here between the two teams, and I want to see you can kind of...
All right, let's hear it.
You can come back with your little rebuttal if you have one.
Oh.
So the Chiefs have the #1 offense in the NFL, but the Colts have a top 10 defensive unit. Obviously, I gave the edge to the Chiefs there because of Patrick Mahomes is, just a freak with
50 touchdown passes, probably the MVP of the league. Yeah,
exactly. As a rookie, nonetheless. The Colts have allowed an NFL low 18 sacks. Whoever saw that coming at the beginning of the year. But the Chiefs are tied for the league lead in sacks with 52. Interesting stat there. The Chiefs give up 5 yards per carry, while the Colts running back Marlon Mack averages 4.7 per carry. So that could have a big game.
He has come on a lot, Marlon Mack has, at the end of the season, and luckily he helped lead my fantasy football team to a second-place finish out of nowhere. So that was nice. But obviously Indy's offensive line has been a big part of that. I mean, you saw when they were playing the Ravens last week, they were pushing them around quite a bit. And sorry, not Indy, Houston. Sorry about that. They were pushing around Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt, and it wasn't even that difficult for them. It didn't seem. And Indy is definitely a team that they have flown under the radar. I mean, they got off to that bad start to start the year. So I think a lot of teams just kind of checked out on them. Like Patriots handled them. I think that was like a 38-24 game during the season. And no, the Patriots beat the Colts 38-24 during the season.
They beat the Colts.
And the Chiefs, I think a lot of teams probably aren't thinking about the Colts. But I'm telling you, I'm actually picking the Colts in this game.
Yeah, we both hopped on the Colts bandwagon.
Yeah,
this week.
I think that a team like the Chiefs, I don't think they're a team that necessarily benefits from a week off. I think the Andy Reid factor, coaching in the playoffs, I say it all the time. I honk that horn whenever I can because I've seen it. I think that's a real thing. I think Kansas City can be a tough place to play, but I can definitely see Indy going in there and getting up 10-0 quickly, and the place just falling silent. Yep. And that's not to say that Mahomes isn't awesome and that he isn't going to make a bunch of plays and help keep them in that game, but I think Indy's just a team, they've got nothing to lose. They're really not scared of the Chiefs, and I think they're going to go in there, and I think they're going to pull the upset.
Well, two other things I want to mention. The Chiefs have not won a playoff game since 1993, and they've never beaten the Colts in the playoffs. They're 0-4.
I think it was a couple years ago. There was that real high-scoring game, and I think that was also at Arrowhead, and it was a big Andrew Luck game, if I remember correctly.
And Andy Reid, the past 3 times coming out of a bye week into the playoffs, is 1-2. So there's that Andy Reid being Andy Reid.
Yeah, just doing Andy Reid things. And, obviously if the Patriots can beat the Chargers, there you are, New England Patriots hosting an AFC Championship game. That could very, very well be happening.
And that's a good segue into, actually, no, that's the third game of the weekend. The second game is NFC number 4 Dallas, number 2 the Rams. That's 8:15 on Fox on Saturday night. And the Cowboys' history hasn't been kind to them in the playoffs when we get to the divisional round. The past 25 years, Cowboys have lost all 7 playoff road games. Cowboys have lost all divisional games since 1996. But a little bright spot here, the Rams are giving up a league-leading 5.1 yards per carry, and Dallas has Ezekiel Elliott, who ran for 137 yards against Seattle last week. So if there's a bright spot, they're going to feed Elliott the ball and hopefully he can get in the end zone.
I think the big question in this game is obviously going to be, is Todd Gurley healthy?
Yeah.
You know, like there seems to have been a lot of back and forth about that. You know, I don't think he's been practicing this week. You know, but nobody is saying that he's not going to play. But, you know, is Todd Gurley at 80% as good as Ezekiel Elliott, you know, chugging behind that Dallas offensive line? I honestly think the Rams are going to find a way to win. I think they've got too much offensive firepower. You know, they've come a long way. You know, last year in the playoffs, I think they lost to Atlanta. And I think that they've grown a lot since then. Obviously, they've had some injuries. The Cooper Kupp injury really hurts them, but they've got a lot of offensive weapons. And Dallas, let's not underscore that Allen Hurns injury is brutal. True, yeah. That brutal injury that in that game against Seattle.
It wasn't as bad as you know, he dislocated his ankle, which is still bad, but he didn't break anything.
But he's done. Oh, he's done for the year. And you know, that really just, you know, Cole Beasley, he's a nice piece, but he's like a poor man's Julian Edelman.
He's always been that third string and wider, the third.
I mean,
guy
he made that crazy catch in that Giants game in the end of the regular season, and that's all well and good. But I mean, really, you're looking at their weapons. It's kind of Amari Cooper and it's Ezekiel Elliott, and that's it. You know, I think the Rams can kind of spread you out if they have to. You know, I think that the Rams are probably going to hold court here, and they're probably going to beat the Cowboys. But if I'd have told you 8 weeks ago that the Eagles and the Cowboys were both going to be in divisional NFC playoff games, like you would have said I was drunk on something.
Laughed you out of the room.
No question you would have. And I still can't believe that those two teams have made it here. You know, but obviously that's why they play the games.
That's true. Now we'll go into the Patriots and Chargers. Number 5 Chargers, number 2 Patriots at Gillette, 105 CBS, Sunday afternoon. Perfect time slot because that's what they play every week, it seems like.
And perfect weather for New England.
Yeah, that's true. I was just going to say that.
Everything's working out for the Patriots
nice
again.
And cold. You get like the coldest snap of the new year so far, and probably of the whole winter and late fall for New England. And maybe some snow in the forecast. So we have LA coming from that nice warm weather, making another cross-country trip, this time to nice, snowy, blustery New England, to play Tom Brady and the Patriots in January at home. It's not pretty good for the Chargers. History hasn't been kind to anybody that's come into Gillette because the Patriots are 7-0 in divisional rounds since 2011. During that time, they've averaged 37.1 points per game. But LA is undefeated away from LA this year at 9-0. And on the flip side, we just checked before we started because we were curious, the Patriots are undefeated at home in the regular season.
So this is really a juggernaut type of thing. Something's got to give. And I think that this is going to be New England's biggest test of the year, not just because it's the divisional playoffs and the winner goes to the AFC Championship game. I think the Chargers are just that damn good. I mean, like, you remember that game a few weeks ago where they were playing Kansas City. They were down big. They were not scared by Mahomes and the Chiefs, and they rallied and they scored that 2-point conversion at the end. I mean, and like just the cojones on that team to go for that 2-point conversion and not just go for the tie and go for overtime. I don't think this team's scared of anybody. Now, that being said, Brady, Belichick, in New England, divisional round playoff game. Like, I think, and the weather, I think that negates the fact that I think the Chargers are better than the Patriots, but I think all that Patriot mystique and the allure and trying to beat New England in New England in the playoffs, something that teams rarely do. I think that really levels the playing field. I think that this is going to be the best game of the weekend.
Probably. I think so too. And you think the Patriots will win?
I do. I think they're going to squeak it out. I really do. And I think they're going to end up hosting the AFC Championship game against the Colts. I think that the talent is on the Chargers side, but you know, when it comes to, you know, Brady, he knows how to win in big games. He knows how to get in big spots. I mean, Philip Rivers has never been to. He's been to one AFC Championship game, and that was against New England several years ago. But I think, you know, I just don't see a scenario where the Chargers are going to go in there and they're going to beat the Patriots and the weather and not beat themselves. If it's any other team, I mean, if they're going to Kansas City this weekend, I think they're probably winning that game. But I think that the Patriots, there's just, I mean, it's well documented. There's something about the Patriots, you know, at home in the playoffs, and I see the Patriots squeaking out maybe like a 28-24 kind of win.
Yeah. And the last game of the week on Sunday, 4:40 on Fox, Saints in Philly. Number 6 Philly going to number 1 New Orleans. Playing in the Dome, so weather won't be a factor down there. The Saints beat Philly 48-7 back in Week 11. And interesting stats I was telling Mark before for his Eagles. Since 2012, there have been 14 teams that got the rematch after losing by 20 or more during the regular season. Those teams have gone 1-13 in the rematch. And Nick Foles' only loss as a starter was to the Saints.
The Saints. That's right. Yeah, that was.
But it's Nick Foles. It's Nick Foles of new Nick Foles here. So maybe
Nick Foles.
The voodoo Nick Foles who pulled out that crazy win in Chicago.
Well, he didn't pull it out. I mean, we did just enough to win, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And and one of the Eagles' defensive linemen got a fingernail on that ball, and I actually feel really bad for Cody Parkey. That he's taken a ton of heat.
It wasn't even his fault.
It wasn't his fault, and the only reason that the Eagles didn't win that game outright is because he made 3 field goals earlier in the game in cold weather at night. I actually feel really bad for him. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's just about figuring out a way to survive in advance, and that's what Philly did last week. As far as this game goes, look, this has been a hell of a run. the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. It's been awesome. I have thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. I never thought I would see the Eagles win a Super Bowl, and it's been great. It's going to come to an end on Sunday. You know what I mean? We've been playing so much better since that Saints game. We've gone 6-1 since then. We've been averaging about 25 points a game. Foles has been amazing. I think that we're going to score some points because I don't think New Orleans' defense is half as good as Chicago's. I think we'll score some points. I think we'll make it interesting. But we're not outscoring Breeze and the Saints on a fast track in a dome. Our secondary is not that good. Breeze didn't have a great end of the regular season, but a lot of those games were on the road, and they've had an extra week to prepare. I just think that this is probably going to be one of those 40-24 kind of games where we're gonna score some points and we're gonna stay within a puncher's chance in terms of points scored, but the game's really never going to be in doubt.
So New Orleans.
Yeah, definitely New Orleans.
Yeah, I picked New Orleans too.
Yeah, I mean New Orleans and New England has been my pick all along to be the 2 teams to make it to the Super Bowl, and I'm sticking with it. So.
Yep. Well, there you have it. That's the NFL we're breaking down. But now we're going to flip it back over onto its regular head and talk about some local stuff. Mark and I have both hit some games in the past week since I've been back from vacation. I've got a quick rundown here for the boys and girls basketball the past week. Madomic is 6-3. They've lost 2 straight games to Erskine Academy and Coney by a total of 8 points, which was really shocking to me to see that. I think they were both on the road too.
They were both on the road. Erskine is very tough, and so is Coney. I talked to Coach Nick DePatsy after both of those games, and he just said, Class A North is really, really tough. Yep. There aren't a lot of easy games, and I don't think that was like a hyperbolic kind of statement that he would make. I think that it's going to be a tough road for the Madomic boys because you look at them, they're 6-3 right now, I believe it is, and they're sitting in the 7 or 8 spot.
They're 8th in A North, and that's the cutoff for playoffs.
Whereas you look at Oceanside in Class B North, and they're sitting at 7-2, and they're fifth, fourth.
Yep,
so
fifth
so there's just this is just going to be a very competitive year in A North where but it's not like Madomic's out of it. They were in both of those games until the last, possession or two. So it's going to be one of those things where it's just going to be will they make the playoffs and, what kind of draw will they get when they get there.
That's true. Yeah. And now Camden Hill is also in A North. They're 11th in A North, currently sitting out of the playoffs at 1-7. Their last loss was to Brewer last Friday, I believe. And I was at that game, and that game was close most of the way. It was pretty sloppy because Brewer isn't a great team this year. And Camden plays that the up tempo defense that they play. And then Brewer kind of pulled away the gate. They had a double-digit lead, but Camden came back. Jeremy Frazier hit a couple threes late with a couple minutes to go, but Brewer just hit free throws after Camden started fouling and pulled away. They won by 7. Oceanside, we just talked about, they're 7-2 and 5th in B North. You were at their MDI game last Friday, which they pulled out at home. To talk about that game, those were some big heel points that they won.
It definitely was. Especially a team that they had already lost to earlier in the season. And one of the big things about this win, one of the biggest things, is that if you look at the top standings in B North this year, there aren't a lot of KVAC teams represented. You know what I mean? So you need to get a win over a Herman or over an MDI, so you can get those the jiggle points, as Don Shields likes to call them, late in the season, so you can get a little bit of those, and maybe jump up the standings a little bit more. So getting a win over a team like that, when you've got teams like MDI, Ellsworth, Herman, Orono, when those are teams that you're kind of looking up at or comparable with, those wins are really, really big. And that game against MDI was a terrific game. MDI, they looked to be pulling away late in the second quarter. In fact, they held Oceanside scoreless for the first 7 minutes and 55 seconds of the second quarter. And Lombardo hit a three-pointer just before the halftime buzzer ended. It seemed like that kind of sparked Oceanside a little bit into the third quarter. MDI made a run, Oceanside made a run, but then toward the end, Lombardo hit a couple threes, Workala hit one, that tied it, and then they made a steal on the inbounds pass, and I believe it was Lombardo made a pass to Amos Anderson, and that gave them a quick lead, and then they were able to just kind of hold them off at the end, but I think Lombardo had 15 points in that game. They were all threes, all of them were really, really big. And it was just an exciting game, and it was a game that Oceanside really, as far as where they're going to stand in the standings at the end of the season, was a game it was really, really big for them.
Yep. And now running down the last couple teams, Belfast is 2-7. They're 14th in B North, currently out of the playoffs. They've won 2 of their past 3 against Waterville, and then they held on to beat Mount View. You were at that game too. And then they lost on the road to Presque Isle by 2. I think that was like 38-36. Up in the county. Mount View's 1-7 in B North. They picked up their first win over Old Town back on January 5th. Searsport's 4-4. They're 11th in C North. They beat Shed back on January 5th. I think they're still without Charlie Spiegel.
I believe they're supposed to get him back tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, because I'll be up there on Saturday for the girls and boys contest. So
yeah, I spoke to Searsport coach Dave Pepin, and he said that if everything goes right as he's forecasting, that he should be back for that Friday or Saturday game.
Yeah, so they need him down low because they really miss him down there. He's a pretty big force. Vinyl Haven is 1-8. They're in D North. They split with Pine Tree Academy last week for their first win of the year. They're currently out of the playoffs. On to girls basketball, Menominee Valley 7-2. They're 4th in A North right now. They beat Coney on January 8th. Camden Hills is 3-5 so far. They're 6th in A North. Also in the hunt, they're actually in the playoffs because the first 8 teams make it in A North. They beat Brewer last Friday on the road, 44-40. Oceanside is 8th in B North, currently in the playoffs if the regular season was to end today. They lost to Mount View on the road back on January 8th, which I thought was a little shocking because
Oceanside, you mean?
Yeah, Oceanside. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was a big win for Mount View. Obviously, I wasn't at that game, but that was a game if they want to have a puncher's chance to maybe go on a little run here at the end of the year and try to be on the road for a prelim game in February.
Yep.
That was a big win for them, a win they had to have.
It was, yeah. So they're 2-5. They're 13th in B North, still currently out of the cutoff.
Yeah. Top 11 make it.
Yeah,
so it's not out of the realm to think that they couldn't steal a win here or there and play their way in and look at that last spot possibly.
That's true. Belfast is 0-9. They're 15th in B North. Probably not going to make the playoffs this year, barring some miraculous miracle. Searsport's 5-4. They're 13th in C North. I believe they're in the second to last cutoff for C North because there's like 20 or 21 teams in that class. They've lost 3 of their past 4 though, so they're slipping a little bit. Vinyl Haven is 2-8. They're 6th in D North right now. Excuse me. They split with Pine Tree Academy in their last games. And here's an interesting, also in D North is North Haven. They're at 0-6, which is interesting. They have no wins, but they're in the last playoff spot. But Seacoast Christian also was winless in the 9th, and there's only 9 teams in D North, so they're 9th. But North Haven and Seacoast Christian both play January 26th at North Haven. So whichever team wins that game will probably be in the playoffs. Which would be interesting.
With maybe only one win. Right. Actually, I'm going there. We're taping this on a Thursday, and I'm actually going to see the North Haven girls play Pine Tree Academy tonight. I don't know where Pine Tree stands, but obviously, North Haven, they're a team. They've only got like 6 girls. I mean, North Haven, like these small island schools, I mean, you're depending on all of the players, not just the players, but the girls, the bodies, the people that you have in these schools. To be able to, you're counting on them to be able to have a team at all.
Yep.
So I mean, it's obviously it's a tough pill to swallow, to try to go on the road and try to win a lot of these games. But it's more of a sense of school pride, I think, more than anything, just to be able to have a team and go up there and have a puncher's chance to win some of these games.
Yeah, it would be interesting for a team with 1 win to make the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you one question before we get out of here. One of the one game that we haven't talked about was your big hockey game.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that.
From this past weekend. That was Camden against Waterville Winslow.
Camden won 3-2. And that win vaulted Camden from 3rd in the B North standings all the way up to 1st in the B North. So they're up by like 5 heel points over Waterville Winslow and Presque Isle's 3rd. Which that game was packed. I got there a little bit after, how about, excuse me, still trying to get over the cold. The first period. Hard to find a parking spot at MRC when Camden's playing this year because they're really good. All that youth has finally grown up a little bit. The game was tied 1-1, and then in the second period, I forget who scored the goal, but it was a shorthanded goal. They were on a penalty and had a breakaway, and scored the go-ahead goal. And I think they got another one in the second period too, because as I was leaving, I heard the horn go off again to put Camden. I think they went up 3-1. I'm not entirely sure on that. Waterville Winslow got one back, and then Camden held on for the win. And that was a big game, a big win for the Windjammers to maybe propel them to the #1 seed in B North. The host throughout the playoffs would be big, but they still have some tough games. They got to play Old Town Orono, who's 6-0 on the year so far. Old Town Orono is 4th or 5th, excuse me, in the standings. I think they may have beaten up on some of the lower teams early on in the season to get their undefeated, but Camden's got to play them. They got to play Presque Isle again at home, and I believe they have to play Waterville Winslow again on the road this time. Later on in the season, I believe. I'm not entirely sure on that. I haven't checked their schedule. Which it's going to be interesting. They still have more than half the season to play because their season doesn't end until almost the end of February.
Right. There's still a lot of, I mean, like, it's great that Camden has vaulted up to the top of B North, but like you said, I mean, there are a lot of heel points out there still to be gotten.
Yep.
You know, from teams like Old Town Orono and Waterville Winslow for that matter.
Yep.
I mean, so just because they're at the top now doesn't mean they're going to be at the end of the season. Like that's not an indictment on Camden. It just means that there's a lot of competition in B North.
It's a pretty deep division, and it's going to be interesting. We'll see.
So
still got a bunch of games to hit. Got about a month left in the season before we hit tournament time, and then things really get busy.
You got that right.
We start living at Bangor and Augusta again. Back to our home away from home.
That's right.
Well, for Mark, I'm Zach, and this has been the Press Box.